have some extraordinary features in the story. Firstly, the formation of an incorporated association by, it seems quite clearly, a lawyer, without any indications that the union authorised this. And I would have thought, trying to remember my periods of practice, that the first thing you would do would be to get a resolution yes. of the board of AWU authorising the establishment of the association. The second extraordinary thing is then the acting for two people as individuals, but where they are being financed by this association. When, for example, they call for the money, when Slayton Gordon called for the money and called for a bank cheque, they actually go ahead and issue a cheque on the association. I find that extraordinary that the solicitors did not say this is something which is rather strange and I'm on notice and I seem to be acting for all sorts of people in a conflict, a very clear conflict of interest. But what I would like to ask you, Michael, is this. It seems that the association purporting to be part of the AWU was not only getting money from members of the AWU, well, it wasn't getting any money from members, it was getting money from builders. Now, why would builders in a city like Perth or Melbourne, why would they be handing over money to an association? Is this part and parcel of the normal environment of union activity?
Yeah, the Australian Workers' Union, the BLF and several other unions had considerable muscle, particularly when it came to construction activities. Now, when I started to talk about this matter on the radio, I had a number of people ring me up off the air and describe being present at building sites representing builders. In other words, the people that rang me said, I was with a building company like Tees or Leighton's or whatever, being present at building sites when a union rep would walk in and say, no one likes to see a concrete pour stop halfway, do they? And this one isn't going to stop halfway. But that might take a few extra memberships. And very clear threats were made of that sort, that in order to achieve industrial harmony, industrial peace, you'd hand over a cheque, and quite often that happened. That is, as has been described to me, and in the building commission that the Howard government set up, you hear all sorts of stories that are similar to the one that I have just related. Now, a number of people spoke about Bruce Wilson and having encountered him in those circumstances coming into building site offices. And you can take that as hearsay, put that to one side and say, well, that may just be rumour. What I think is not rumour is a letter, a report from a Detective Sergeant McAlpine to His Honour Justice Rod Madgwick of the Industrial Relations Court of Australia in relation to this matter of Bruce Wilson. Now, in this letter, Detective Sergeant McAlpine from the Fraud Squad in Western Australia says to His Honour, Your Honour, I write to you because a fraud has been reported. And he describes how that association that we just spoke about had been established. The detective says nobody else in the union knew about it. It was conducted through a post office box. It was set up outside the rules of the union, and that only Blewett and Wilson were aware of it. Only those two were signatories, and that Blewett and Wilson in particular, had gone out to companies like Tees and said, well, you pay us, you pay money into this association, and ultimately Tees did pay money into the account of the association. Now, little did Tees know that that money was just going to the benefit of Wilson and Blewett. And in this letter, the detective says Tees was unaware that the association was a sham. Had it known, it would not have paid, is what the detective says here. So at that time, and who knows now, even now, nobody likes to see industrial disputation. Nobody likes to see days lost, and it would seem that there is some evidence that Wilson would use that as leverage to go out to building companies and lean on them, heavy them for money that would go into various of these accounts and then would go to whatever purpose he, Wilson, saw fit. Cambridge's affidavit is most instructive in that regard because he methodically, it must have just taken him like months, he has painstakingly reconstructed each of these questionable accounts and has just produced in that affidavit the most compelling commentary about how the money went into the accounts and how it came out. And the case of Wilson, he's never had to stand for oral examination before a court or the police, never had to stand up and say, well, this cheque for 10 grand went here, that cheque for 20 went there, this cheque for 30 went there, those 2 cheques to Town Mode Fashion House totalling $17,000 from union money, the women's fashion house in Melbourne, was for this purpose, this union purpose. He's never had to give an account because the union ceased its pursuit of him and its pursuit of its money back. Bill Ludwig, the boss of the union, can't have it both ways. He can't say to the union leadership in Melbourne, when you returned this money to those companies, Leighton's, Tees, Fluor, etc., you were wrong. That's what Bill Ludwig said. He said, you were wrong. When you returned the money to those companies, you were wrong. I want that money back in the union's accounts. And he got it. He got it back in the union's accounts. You can't have it both ways because Wilson also took money to buy a house. Now, Bill, where's your application to get that house back from Wilson? Why'd you let him walk? Why'd you let him walk with the tens of thousands of dollars that went through those accounts? Why aren't you getting that back? Why aren't you saying it was wrong for that money to be returned to the building companies, but it was right for Wilson to get the money and keep it?